Welcome to another edition of Smart Chat here on YouTube.com. Hope all is well. Dustin will now be with AEW fighting against his brother Cody Rhodes. Dustin Runnels, that is. And Dustin Runnels, in announcing that, in the same time, has also he's announced the retirement of the GOLDDUST character. I just kind of want to look back at the GOLDDUST character. Dustin kind of began wrestling in order, I think, to get closer to his father, follow his father's footsteps. His father, I was reading, advised him to kind of keep their connection a secret to avoid accusations of favoritism and harsher treatment from peers and promoters. But within days of debuting in '88, the secret became widespread knowledge. Dustin would soon take on the recurring ring name Dustin Rhodes. In 1990, Dustin joined Dusty in the WWF. Less than a year later, Dusty returned to WCW and Dustin went too. Vince McMahon vowed to Dusty that he would have Dusty's son working for him someday. And he was right. 5 years later, Dustin was instructed to blade as part of the script for a pay-per-view match. Dustin was assured that they had clearance, despite this breaking a regulation against blading and featuring blood on television. However, Dustin was still fired over the stunt. Dustin felt that his father didn't try hard enough to vindicate his son. The breaking point came when Dusty repeated his negative suspicions about Dustin's wife, Terry. Dustin reached out to the WWF and Vince offered him a contract. When Dustin joined the WWF in '95, he was amended. He said that he would not return to Dusty Rhodes. He wanted to completely distance himself from the character and from his father. So Vince McMahon pitched an idea to him. And now for months, McMahon had been toying with the idea of an outlandish and sexual type of heel. Not really understanding what Vince meant, Dustin accepted. With a little refinement, GOLDDUST debuted in August of '95. Some maintain that Vince gave Dustin the character as an attempt to humiliate Dusty. If that is the case, Dustin was happy to do, which I don't believe was the case at all. Even now, it's hard to explain the GOLDDUST character fully. He was an actor and a director who had become so obsessed with becoming famous that he went crazy. He began covering himself from head to toe in gold and dressing in drag like British wrestler Adrian Street. He pretended to be Carly, and he even flirted with or ran away from his competition. And once his opponents were off their games, Dustin, or GOLDDUST, would pummel them with hard brawling or technical expertise. But even when he was winning or had won, he wouldn't stop the mind games. There was constant mind games with GOLDDUST. GOLDDUST was so effective that some superstars generally didn't want to work with him. While they respected Dustin, they hated GOLDDUST. In fact, it took Dustin a few months to get comfortable with GOLDDUST too. Now, I think the highlight of all his WWF runs came in early '96. He defeated Razor Ramon for his first WWF title, the Intercontinental Championship. This was supposed to lead to Roman regaining it at WrestleMania. Instead, it would be Roddy Piper fighting GOLDDUST in a Hollywood backlot brawl. Now everyone remembers that. The match ended when Piper stripped Goldust of his ring attire, revealing women's lingerie underneath, an idea that Dustin had himself. In '97, Dustin had a face turn at Dusty's expense. Dustin admitted he was the man under that Goldust face paint, and that Marlena was his wife Terry. However, he falsely claimed that Dusty was not the greatest, and cut contact with Dustin because he hated the Goldust character. The face turn ended with Dustin dumping Terry and the character, technically. His new character, then became the artist formerly known as Goldust, was obviously a new version of Goldust. It was even more outlandish, but it lacked direction. In order to freshen it up, he went through a phase where he parodied other wrestlers, if you remember, and pop culture icons. Among them was a parody of his own father called Dusty Dust. Dustin then competed briefly with a character based on his real name to help transition and to return to the classic Goldust character. If you recall too, Dustin was later released from the WWF in 1999. He returned to WCW, reconciled with his father. He portrayed Goldust through his third WWE run, but this time he was more of a friendly comedy character. He was part of the cult favorite tag team with Booker T called GOLDDUST, but his biggest moment was parodying TV show host Steve Irwin in a backstage segment mocking the NWO. He left again in 2003. Stint 4 came in late 2005. He and Vader assisted Jonathan Coachman in a brief feud against Batista. He officially joined the Raw roster in the next Rumble. However, he was released in mid-2006 after no-showing an event. He made a one-off appearance at WrestleMania 22, telling Booker T he needed to put Boogeyman's earthworms into his own butt. Again, he returned in 2008, but for the first year, he only appeared sporadically on television. During this time, he tested for bigger roles backstage. He mainly assisted with developing younger talents until his release in 2012. His return at the 2013 Rumble may have teased a feud with his half-brother Cody Rhodes, but it turned to be a one-night thing. But he promptly, returned several months later. This was originally supposed to be temporary for a storyline push involving Cody, but Dustin's health and performance was better than ever. He was kept on a longer term. Again, he would work in backstage roles too. From this point on, Goldust became a serious character. This run would then end last month. During his absences from the WWE, Dustin was often given ill-fated characters that were based on Goldust. Included characters such as Seven, GOLDDUST, and Black Rain. And while we know about those characters, they didn't have the longevity as the Goldust character. So we say goodbye to the Goldust character, and a great character it was, very controversial, and got a lot of people looking in amazement, sometimes not even being able to decipher fact from fiction. Congratulations to Goldust, Dustin Runnels, as he goes on to AEW. Interesting to see what will happen next. Hope all is well.